Pathetic. Professor Jones' voice cut through the lecture hall like a cold steel blade. If this is your idea of critical thinking, I dread to hear your version of logic. The class fell silent. Not a soul dared to breathe. Rows of students froze, pens hovering over half-filled notebooks. The steady patter of rain against the tall windows felt deafening in the quiet. Jungkook stood at the front, flawless. His black suit sleeves rolled up just enough to reveal the curve of his forearms. Leaning on the podium, his dark, sharp eyes scanned the room like a predator sizing up its prey. He despised incompetence, or at least, that's what he told himself. In truth, he hated distractions more, and lately, she had become exactly that. Wine sat near the second row, notebook open, pen poised, eyes locked on him. Unlike the others who whispered or fidgeted, she listened intently, proud, as if every word mattered. She wasn't afraid, not really. She respected him. She admired him. That alone unsettled him. His tone was deliberate, condescending. Would you care to explain why your answer relies on emotion rather than reason? This is literature, not your diary. Nervous laughter rippled through the room. The girl he addressed shrank, staring down. Jungkook sighed, a sound subtle yet weighted. Sit down. Spare us the pain. His gaze flickered to Wine. For a fleeting second, she hadn't smiled. Instead, she seemed disappointed, her brows knitting slightly. That faint disapproval unnerved him more than any fear from the students ever could. Perhaps she means emotion is part of reasoning. Her voice was soft, careful. Professor, authors often use emotion to strengthen logic, not weaken it. Heads turned. Silence stretched across the hall, tense and heavy. Jungkook's eyes lingered on her, cold, but alert, undeniably aware. He should have shut her down immediately, as always. That was the rule. Never let a student challenge him. Yet he found himself saying, Miss Wine, your insight surprises me. He straightened, slipping his hands into his pockets. For once, laughter returned to the room, hesitant and nervous, but this time, it lacked its usual mockery. And while others laughed, his gaze remained on her a heartbeat too long. Something twisted inside him. Why does she always look at me as if she's trying to understand me? He shouldn't feel this. The lecture continued, his voice precise and sharp, but his mind wandered. Every time he caught her glance, her hair brushing her cheek, her calm focus, it stirred something he refused to name. When the bell rang, murmurs filled the room. Everyone hurried to escape his domination. Next week, a 3,000-word essay on duality in classical tragedy. Submit on Turnitin, or don't bother showing up. Students gathered their things quietly. His eyes lingered on her one last time. She was the last to pack, hands moving carefully as she closed her notebook. She offered a small, polite smile when he looked up. Just a gentle curve of her lips, but it struck him more than it should have. He forced his gaze away. Planning to sit here all day, Miss W? No, Professor. Just finishing my notes. I'll be quick. My patience isn't shared. Her smile faltered. She murmured an apology and left. The faint scent of her perfume, jasmine and rain, lingered in the air. For the first time that day, Jungkook lost his train of thought. When the door closed, he exhaled, pressing his fingers to his temple. Eat it. She's just a student. You don't feel this way about students. Yet her empty seat, so neat and aligned, made a strange silence settle in his chest. He told himself it was irritation, but even he doubted that. The lecture hall emptied like a storm had passed. The air smelled of coffee, paper, and lingering tension from his class. Wine walked briskly down the corridor, books clutched to her chest, replaying every word he had spoken. He was cruel, brutally so, but the precision of his mind, the authority in his voice, fascinated her. It wasn't love yet. It was raw, unexplainable admiration. She turned the corner sharply and collided with someone. Books, papers, pens, all spilled across the marble floor. Oh my, I'm so sorry. Of course you are. She froze, gaze snapping upward. There he was, Jungkook, crisp black shirt sleeves rolled up, eyes storm dark and piercing. He looked down at her, as though she disrupted the order of the universe. I wasn't watching where I was going, she stammered. He bent first, gathering the scattered papers with precise, controlled movements. His expression was stern, but his eyes softened for a brief second as he watched her struggle. Their fingers brushed, fleeting, nothing, and yet something. She froze, breath caught. He pulled back immediately as if burned. Be careful next time. You speak as if you expect me to fail. His jaw tightened. Straightening fully, he said, I expect everyone to fail. It spares me disappointment. The words were short, yet his voice wavered ever so slightly, a fracture she noticed but couldn't understand. He handed her the last papers, fingers brushing hers again, slower this time. You should go. Right. Good night, Professor. She walked away, heels clicking softly. When she disappeared around the corner, he exhaled, releasing breath he hadn't realized he'd held. She's just a student, he reminded himself. And yet, he felt foolish. The storm came 3 nights later. The university was quiet, empty. Corridors dark, windows rattling with rain. Only his office glowed warmly, spilling light across books and unmarked papers. He sat behind his desk, glasses low on his nose, face softened by fatigue. A knock sounded. He frowned. It's late. The door opened before he could respond. Wine stepped in, soaked, clutching her notebook. I'm sorry, Professor. I know it's late. I just needed to talk. He leaned back, unimpressed but intrigued. About your grades, I presume? No, about you. The air shifted, fragile. Raindrops tapped urgently against the windows. Miss Wine, you're close to crossing a line. Then just let me this once, she said softly, voice steady. He hated how it stirred something in him, pity, or worse, affection. She inhaled shakily. You don't have to pretend you don't notice, Professor. The way you look at me, the kindness you don't intend. I see it. I know I shouldn't feel this, but I do. I like you more than I should. He rose slowly, deliberate, as if containing danger. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then his words cut sharply. Stop chasing me, Miss Wine. She blinked, heart flickering. I'm not chasing you. I'll never love you. Her breath caught painfully. He stepped closer, tone sharp, defensive, but his eyes betrayed him, filled with something close to pain. You confuse admiration with affection. I have no time for childish fantasies. The sadness that followed was suffocating. Wine clutched her notebook, face painted in lamplight, heartbreakingly real. That night, he remained in his office longer than usual, papers untouched, mind racing. Her absence, her silence, felt heavier than punishment. Why does it unsettle me so? He wondered, staring at the empty seat she always used during study hours. She's just a student, nothing more. Yet every part of him disagreed. Most of the campus slept under dim streetlights, but the library glowed faintly. Jungkook had come to drop off research materials for the literature department. His thoughts were tangled with Wine's quiet presence in his mind. He turned a corner and froze. There she was, sitting across from another professor's assistant, Professor Min, leaning over stacks of old texts. Her voice was soft, her laughter warm and genuine. For the first time in months, she looked alive. A sudden, irrational jealousy twisted in Jungkook's chest. He watched her point out a passage, smiling faintly as the assistant leaned in. Something snapped quietly, but sharply within him. His footsteps echoed as he approached. Miss W. They both looked up, startled, but composed. Professor Jungkook. I see. Assisting Professor Min? Yes. We're working on some research. His jaw tightened. Is this part of your coursework, or just volunteering? Professor Min spoke lightly. She's very skilled with classical literature references, rare talent. Jungkook's gaze sharpened, voice icy but controlled. For a moment, her heart skipped, but she stayed composed. I enjoy helping, Professor. It's peaceful, she said softly, almost to herself. Peaceful, he murmured, louder this time. I didn't think you valued peace. You seem to seek challenge instead. Professor Min excused himself, sensing tension. Once alone, Jungkook stepped closer, voice quiet. You've been avoiding me. No, Professor. I've been learning where not to look. That calm, emotionless reply struck harder than her confession had. He should have been proud. Hadn't he wanted her to move on? Yet it felt like something irreplaceable was lost. "Arrogance and distraction don't suit you," he murmured. Their eyes met, tension burning unspoken. She replied softly, without affection, "Good night, Professor." Gathering her things, she passed him, shoulder brushing lightly. He turned slightly, watching her fade into the dim corridor. Her footsteps disappeared, leaving only the rain's rhythm against the windows and a hollow weight in his chest. Why does it bother me to see her with someone else? He reminded himself. She's just a student. But the truth pressed harder with every heartbeat. No, she wasn't just anything anymore. The annual academic symposium arrived, 1 hour of the year when Jungkook allowed himself to wear something other than black. Tonight, a dark charcoal suit replaced his usual attire, though the same unreadable calm sat across his face. The auditorium buzzed with murmurs and polite applause. Professors, guests, and students presented their research from the stage. Spotlight on wine. She read her paper on the paradox of emotion and rational thought. Every word measured, confident, displaying a poise he rarely saw mirrored. He shouldn't have been proud, but he was. When it was his turn to critique, he rose, walking toward the microphone with deliberate calm. "Miss Wine's presentation is impressive. A notable improvement. Some parts, however, read more like personal confusion than objective analysis." Murmurs rippled through the audience. He had done it again, turned the room to stone. Wine met his gaze briefly, and the auditorium vanished. Then she smiled, not shyly, but knowingly. "Perhaps emotion and intellect aren't enemies, Professor. They can coexist, even in those who pretend otherwise." Her words landed softly precise. A few professors chuckled. Students exchanged glances. Jungkook's lips twitched, the faintest crack in his composure. Leaning closer, he said, "I see your confidence has grown. Just ensure it doesn't overshadow your content. I learned that from you. You taught me restraint, Professor. Congratulations. I learned from the best." For the first time, his calm mask slipped, revealing something raw beneath. Applause erupted, but he didn't notice. All he saw was her walking off stage, strength in every step. He had spent months teaching her control. Now she wielded it better than he ever could. A week later, whispers filled the literature department about a new transfer student from Seoul National University. When Professor Jungkook entered the lecture hall, the usual hush followed him. His presence demanded respect, yet even his authority couldn't contain the ripples of excitement. A student at the doorway smiled politely. "Classmate Kong Tun, transfer student for this semester." When the young man entered, Wine's pen slipped from her hand. Wide eyes, sharp inhale. Recognition hit like lightning. "Tun, it's really you. I can't believe it." For the first time in years, she saw the same boy who had brightened her summers back home. Her voice slipped out, genuine, free, unguarded. The class glanced curiously, but she noticed only his laughter, warm, careless, a sound she hadn't made in months, especially not around him. Jungkook's voice cut sharply. "If the reunion is over, perhaps we can proceed with the lecture." The class froze. Wine straightened instantly, cheeks flushed. Tun gave an apologetic nod, his confident grin unchanged. When her lips curved slightly again, Jungkook nearly crushed his pen. After class, sunlight bathed the courtyard. Cherry blossoms swayed in the cold breeze. Jungkook sat at his desk, papers spread, but nothing registered. Through his office window, he saw Wine and Tun beneath pink blossoms, her laughter bright. She tilted back, brushed a stray flower from her hair, his touch lingering. Jungkook's jaw tightened. He told himself it was irritation, not jealousy, but he knew the truth. When her soft voice floated past the open door, carrying that familiar melody, he froze. She walked by, effortlessly taking half his books in hand. Something snapped. "Miss Wine." She turned politely. "Yes, Professor." His tongue felt heavy, caught between words. He wanted to tell her to stop smiling at someone else. Instead, he said, "You've been active lately. Ensure new commitments don't distract from your thesis." Her lips curved quietly, confident. "Don't worry, Professor. I can balance it." Tun leaned casually against the door frame, radiating confidence. "Don't worry, sir. I'll make sure she stays on track." Jungkook's face remained neutral, but the tension in the air crackled. See that you do. They left together, laughter fading down the corridor. When the last sound disappeared, Jungkook leaned back, staring at the closed door, silence suffocating. Once she's gone, she won't return, he thought bitterly. And you'll have only yourself to blame. Outside, cherry blossoms continued falling, soft, careless, indifferent to the man unraveling behind glass.